right, man. This is another segment of Worst Take where we go around the NBA landscape, whether it's a sound bite, a blog post, a message from the group chat as it relates to the New York Knicks. You guys submit it. We will listen to it. We will react to it. And we will rate it. 1 being trash, all the way up to 5 being fact. So on this episode of Worst Take, Pablo Torre and Mark Cuban are at it again, man. You know Pablo Torre jumped on the scene this year. He's been around for a long time, respected journalist. But this year, claim to fame has been the Kawhi Leonard story, the cap circumvention with aspiration and the Clippers, a story that continues to evolve and the NBA now investigating. Mark Cuban has jumped in the fray. He's been defending Steve Ballmer, and these two have been going back and forth, including multiple podcast appearances by Mark Cuban on Pablo Torre Finds Out. But now, as many people have speculated, Pablo Torre would shift his attention to one captain, Jalen Brunson. So here was his question to Mark Cuban regarding Jalen, and here's what Cuban had to say, and let's react to it on the other side. Here we go.
I appreciate cap and taking Jalen Brunson from your Mavericks.
Hang on.
Do you think the Knicks may have circumvented the cap and taking Jalen Brunson from your Mavericks?
I don't know.
A different answer.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I just think there was a lot of play there.
Yeah. Do you think the Knicks should be worried about an upcoming episode of Mark Cuban Finds Out?
You know, that's behind me. You know, more power to JB, more power to everything. Was I happy that they only got dinged for a second-round pick? No. No, it should have been far worse, but is what it is.
All right, tell me, man. Was he happy that they just got dinged a second-round pick? I don't even know where to start, man. I'll let you kick it off, man. What was your thoughts on this?
So a couple things. One, if you had Worst Take as a segment back in 2022 when the Knicks originally signed Jalen Brunson, there were a lot of worst takes out there. You can cue the music, cue the clip. Walmart version of Fred VanVleet. He's going to be this generation's Eddie Curry. Classic Knicks overpay. Knicks LOL, dumb Knicks again, just signing a guy because his dad's on the. So the Knicks, folks got their Knicks for clicks last and then. So now they're going back and telling us that we're supposed to believe that it was somehow circumventing the cap, even though it was everyone else viewed it as an overpay at the time. You can't have both.
No.
You got to make a decision, one or the other. As far as Cuban goes, and I love Cubes, the Mavericks had every opportunity to keep Jalen Brunson in their building. According to Rick Brunson, Cuban has disputed it. According to Rick Brunson, they came to the team in February, said, listen, 4 for 55, we'll accept it. Let's move on. He wants to stay in Dallas. The Mavericks dragged their feet. He went to unrestricted free agency, which means any team in the NBA can sign him. Nobody offered him close to what the Knicks did. The Mavericks purportedly made a low ball offer. And Jalen Brunson comes to New York. The Mavericks, again, any team in the NBA could have matched what the Knicks offered. It could have exceeded if they had cap space, including the Mavericks, who could have blown everyone out of the water in terms of what they could have offered because they had his bird rights. So if Cuban wants to be upset about something and somebody should get dinged the second-round pick, it should probably be the Maverick front office headed by Mark Cuban that made one of the worst free agent decisions in recent NBA history by letting an all-NBA player walk out the door and getting nothing in return on what was a value contract essentially for a guy that developed into an all-star. And it's not like we didn't have any idea where this was coming from. There were certainly reasons that Knicks fans were excited about getting Jalen Brunson, and not just because the Knicks had no point guard for the better part of my lifetime. It's because he played really well the second half of the season when Luka Doncic was sidelines. We've seen him take over the playoff series against the Utah Jazz, basically breaking up the Jazz as we know them, sending Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert packing. So there was reasons, to be optimistic. Mavs dropped the ball. Knicks benefited from it. Obviously, there's familial connections there, with Leon Rose literally being his godfather and Rick Brunson's the connection there. We can rehash that if you like. But in terms of cap circumvention, there's no there,
no.
because the basically paid market value. If anything, a little bit under, maybe a little over. But there was no clear situation where they could only offer him $10 million a year, and some deal came out. I think this is a much ado about nothing.
Yeah, I'm giving this a 1. This is a trash take, even question by Pablo Torre. The whole cap circumvention thing is ridiculous. The Knicks had to clear cap space just to get Jalen Brunson in here as it relates to draft picks and rostered players, just to get him in there. As you said, the Mavericks had numerous chances to keep Jalen there. As his father reported, we had Tim McMahon on the show, stated the same thing. They had their chance. They did not value him in that respect. It's just point blank, period. They dropped the ball. Dropped the ball. And so his godfather's here. His father comes here. Obviously, he's coming here. There was no under the table, illegal improprieties. This is beyond obvious that this kid came here. His family's here to get a bigger role, and he got a bag that, hey, as you said, many in the league thought was overpaid, was some sort of joke, and now he's come in and established himself as a superstar. This is Mark Cuban just trying to walk back one of the biggest mistakes in franchise history, and the Knicks getting dinged with a second-round pick by the league was the biggest joke that I've ever heard.
And the fact that they investigated it.
And they investigated it.
So anything would have came up at that point. And again, they got dinged not for cap circumvention. It was because they discussed the parameters of the deal, or they discussed the potential of him signing as a free agent prior to the window opening, which every team does. But the Mavericks made a boo-hoo about it. And also, I don't want to hear from Cuban about ethics and things of this nature. When they sat out Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic the end of the season,
they tanked the pick.
So if you're tanking intentionally, and again, on the same scale, Rick Brunson, that signing wasn't under the table. They didn't give him a car dealership in New Jersey. He's the first guy on the bench. It was made public. Everybody knew about it. They certainly had the option to do it. So this is nothing. There wasn't anything agreed to behind the scenes or any other excess deals agreed to. This is a shrewd executive. Benefiting from relationships as it happens in every industry. Yeah. This just so happened to turn around the Knicks franchise, very fortunately for the fan base in the city. But again, that would not have even been an issue had the Mavericks done the right thing, the smart thing, the shrewd thing, and locked up Jalen Brunson when they had the chance. And even when they missed that opportunity to sign him for 4 years under $60 million, to then when the Knicks were willing to pony up, match and or exceed that contract, which according to Jalen and according to his father, they weren't even willing to make an offer in the ballpark. So that's not the Knicks' fault.
It is absolutely laughable, man, for him to say the second round penalty was not enough and then come back and tank the Knicks pick that the Mavericks owed the Knicks, the final pick in the Kristaps Porzingis trade, a top 10 protected pick in the lottery. And they go out there, tank in the final games of the season. So they tank the games. They disrespect their shareholders. The people go there to watch Luka Doncic, pay good money to watch Luka Doncic, and he plays for 5 minutes. They tank the pick, get Derek Lively in the 2023 draft. The Knicks get compensated with nothing because of the fraud, and the Mavericks get dinged for $750,000. The Knicks got nothing out of it, and I couldn't believe that there wasn't a bigger uproar over that by the Knicks, by Dolan, or by anyone around the league. They tanked the pick.
If you want to start asking people to investigate and dig into things, there's some conversations, some emails I would like to read around April of that year in terms of deciding, hey, what's Kyrie Irving's injury history? What's the deal here? That still bothers me to this day, and not even just from a Knicks perspective, just from a basketball purist perspective. It's and again, you can't be a hypocrite and claim impropriety when that is arguably one of the most public, just kind of disrespect to the game of basketball that we've seen in the last few years.
Unreal. But hey.
And they still had a chance to make the playoffs. They won like the last 4 games.
That's right.
Exactly what it was. But it wasn't like they were, 30 games under 500.
No, they tanked that pick. The Knicks got screwed completely. And look, I mean, you look at some of these draft picks from that draft. I mean, look, we're not necessarily talking about eye turners or superstars here, but Jaquez got drafted 18 by the Heat. You got Keontae George there at 16. Lively was there with the pick. You could have got Lively. Could have Lively and Mitch.
Lively's a huge piece of their foundation going forward. And the thing that bothered me is I just assumed like karma would catch up to them. And I thought when Nico Harrison, booted Luka, which is still like, I still don't understand. Then they get lucky and get Cooper Flag. But
yeah,
the basketball gods do not forget. There will be repercussions for that tanking at the end of the season.
Yeah. Ben Shepherd, Cam Whitmore. You got Pods in here. A couple of guys that could have been serviceable in a rotation. Now, with the Knicks hat right now, with the second apron, would they still be here? That's another question to be asked. But at least give me the option to make a pick. That was fraud by Cuban and those guys, man.
Fraud.
Absolute fraud, man.